Australia, the land of sweeping deserts, sunburnt skies, quirky wildlife, and cities that cling to the coastline like they're afraid of what lurks inland. And who could blame them? Because once you venture just a little further into the bush, past the last servo, beyond the final bakery, you'll start to find something eerie. Not snakes, not spiders, something spookier. Ghost towns. These aren't just empty towns. They're echoes of ambition. Places where thousands once lived, worked, gambled on dreams, and raised families, now reduced to crumbling buildings, rusting signposts, overgrown footpaths, and the haunting whisper of wind blowing through forgotten windows. Australia, being the overachiever it is, boasts over 150 officially listed ghost towns, and that's just the ones someone bothered to write down. There are likely dozens more quietly crumbling in the outback, being reclaimed by red dust, kangaroos, and nature's sense of humor. Some were killed by drought, others by mine closures or shifting railways. Some just faded away. From abandoned mining camps baked under the sun, to forgotten fishing villages where the only thing biting now is nostalgia, each one tells a story of ambition, bad luck, bold dreams, and usually at least one pub. Today, we're counting down 7 of the most fascinating, eerie, and downright bizarre ghost towns in Australia, with a little bit of history and a few unexpected life lessons along the way. Let's dive in. 7. Silverton, New South Wales. Let's start with a ghost town that didn't fully die. It just changed careers and landed a role in showbiz. Silverton, located about 25 kilometers from Broken Hill, was once one of the brightest stars in Australia's outback mining scene. Back in the 1880s, this remote desert town was buzzing with over 3,000 residents, fueled by the silver boom. It had everything a thriving town needed: 10 pubs, a hospital, school, a newspaper, and even its own tramway system. For a place in the middle of nowhere, it was surprisingly sophisticated. But like many boom towns, its luck didn't last. When richer silver deposits were discovered in nearby Broken Hill, the exodus began. By the early 1900s, Silverton was almost completely deserted, reduced to dust, desert, and empty buildings. But here's the twist. Silverton reinvented itself. It became a film set. From Mad Max 2 to Mission Impossible 2, it's now a backdrop for blockbuster movies. The old jail, now an art gallery. The saloons, open to tourists. Silverton may be a ghost town, but it's found a second life on the big screen. 6. Wittenum, Western Australia. Next up is a ghost town that's less spooky haunted house and more radioactive red flag. Wittenum, once a thriving settlement of over 20,000 people, was built around a single industry: blue asbestos mining. Back in the 1940s and 1950s, asbestos was considered a wonder material: fireproof, cheap, lightweight, and perfect for insulation. There was just one tiny problem: it kills you. As early as the 1960s, residents and workers began developing mesothelioma, asbestosis, and other fatal diseases. The warnings were ignored, profits took priority, and the town limped on even after the mine closed in 1966. By 2007, Wittenum was officially degazetted, meaning it was removed from government records. Road signs vanished, power and water were cut off. Emergency services stopped going. The goal was simple: erase it. Still, a few residents refused to leave, living without services in one of the most contaminated places in the Southern Hemisphere. By 2022, the government forcibly removed the last of them. Today, Wittenum is closed to the public and completely off-limits. It's not just a ghost town, it's a chilling monument to industrial neglect and one of Australia's darkest environmental legacies. 5. Fina, South Australia. A town that didn't go down without a fight. In fact, it gave it a red-hot go. Founded in the 1870s, Fina was envisioned as an agricultural oasis in the desert. The plan? Grow wheat, feed the region, and become the breadbasket of the outback. The problem? They forgot to invite the rain. Average rainfall was so low it made your cactus nervous. But optimism was high, and so were hopes. After all, the town's name means flower in Latin. Cute, right? Until you realize growing flower crops in a dust bowl is about as practical as farming fish in a bathtub. Still, settlers gave it everything. At its peak, Fina had around 300 residents, a post office, 2 hotels, schools, and even a railway line to Port Augusta. But the land was stubborn, the climate harsher, and by the 1950s, Fina had all but faded away. But here's the twist: Fina didn't vanish completely. Each winter, a team of passionate volunteers returns, breathing life into the ruins. They restore stone buildings, tend to the cemetery, and fire up the historic underground bakery. So yes, the town is technically dead, but for a couple of weeks a year it smells like fresh bread and second chances. 4. Walhalla, Victoria. Tucked deep into the mountains of Victoria is Walhalla, a town that sounds like it should be full of Vikings but was actually filled with gold fever and Aussie grit. Discovered in the 1860s during Victoria's gold rush, Walhalla was one of the richest towns in the colony. It didn't grow. It erupted. Within years, the population surged to over 4,000, and the town was stacked with everything you'd expect from a boomtown: banks, schools, shops, and yes, a staggering 30 hotels. Because nothing says prosperity like more pubs than houses. They even carved a cricket ground into the side of a mountain, because priorities. But when the gold seams ran dry in the early 1900s, the rush became a retreat. Businesses closed, families left. By the 1970s, fewer than 10 people remained, and Walhalla teetered on the edge of becoming just another forgotten town. Then came the tourists. Thanks to passionate locals, restored heritage buildings, a scenic railway, and spine-tingling ghost tours, Walhalla made a comeback. Today, it has around 20 to 30 residents, depending on who's counting, and whether or not they include the ghosts of gold miners past. 3. Cook, South Australia. If you've ever taken the Indian Pacific train across Australia, from Sydney to Perth, you've stopped in Cook. Whether you actually remember stopping there is a different story. Blink, and you'll miss it. Breathe too deeply, and you'll blow over the local postbox. Cook sits smack in the middle of the Nullarbor Plain, one of the flattest, driest, and most desolate stretches of land on the continent. Founded in the 1910s as a railway support town, it was once home to over 200 residents, with a school, a hospital, shops, and even a swimming pool, because nothing says thriving town like a body of water in the middle of the desert. But as the railway industry became automated and fewer workers were needed, Cook's population dwindled. Today, it has exactly 4 full-time residents. No mains water, no shops, and no hospital. Supplies? They arrive by train. There's even a dusty sign that reads, "If you're crook, come to Cook." Charming, until you realize the hospital's been closed for decades. Cook isn't so much a town anymore, just a stubborn dot on the map that refuses to disappear. 2. Cucini, Western Australia. Cucini, pronounced Cucini, though no one ever gets it right, was once a glittering star in Western Australia's gold rush era. In the early 1900s, this dusty patch of red earth was home to over 3,500 people, all chasing fortunes beneath the scorching sun. At its peak, Cucini had 16 hotels, a grand theater, a racecourse, a public baths, and even electric streetlights. A big deal for the time. It was a town built on dreams and gold dust, with a level of optimism that, in hindsight, was a little overly ambitious. But by 1920, the gold began to run out, and like so many other towns built on a single resource, the population vanished almost overnight. Businesses closed, buildings were abandoned, and the desert slowly took back its land. Today, fewer than 20 residents remain. Most of the original structures have crumbled or disappeared, except for the Grand Hotel, which still stands proudly, serving cold beer to hot tourists. And then there's Willie the horse. A semi-wild legend, Willie lives at the pub, wanders the main street, and is known to drink beer straight from a stubby. He's become the unofficial mayor of Cucini. Honestly, what's more Australian than a beer-loving ghost town horse? 1. Old Adaminaby, New South Wales. Let's wrap up with a ghost town that's not just abandoned, it's underwater. Old Adaminaby, located in the snowy mountains of New South Wales, was once a peaceful little farming town. It had all the small town essentials: a post office, a school, a few churches, and that unmistakable Aussie charm: dirt roads, friendly neighbors, and a strong sense of community. Then came the Snowy Mountains hydroelectric scheme in the 1950s, the largest engineering project in Australian history. It was bold, ambitious, and set to change the landscape, literally. To create Lake Yucumbin, a massive dam was built, and Old Adaminaby just happened to be in the flood zone. So, what did the government do? It relocated the entire town. Buildings were jacked up and moved. Families packed everything, even their fences. But not everything made it. When the dam filled, Old Adaminaby disappeared beneath the rising water. Its roads, chimneys, and memories drowned. But here's the eerie part. During severe droughts, when the lake level drops, parts of the town resurface. Ghostly ruins emerge. Stone foundations, fence lines, forgotten streets, all still standing beneath the waves. It's like Australia's very own Atlantis, only with sheep paddocks instead of sea gods. A sunken reminder that progress always comes with a price. It's easy to chuckle at the image of a beer-drinking horse or the irony of a ghost town named Fina failing to grow wheat. But behind the quirky anecdotes and crumbling ruins, Australia's ghost towns offer serious lessons. Ones etched into the brickwork, buried beneath the dust and whispered through empty doorways. Many of these towns were built on the back of a single booming industry: gold, coal, asbestos, and when the boom went bust, so did the town. Single industry economies are fragile, especially in remote areas where there are few alternatives when the main employer shuts its doors. Just as vulnerable as a town without resilient infrastructure. In places like Cook, a single railway closure transformed a bustling community into a forgotten refueling stop. Then there's the land itself. Climate is no small player in these stories. Farming towns like Fina were ambitious, but ambition doesn't make it rain. When nature doesn't cooperate, entire communities can wither. But not all stories end in silence. Some towns, Walhalla, Silverton, show that preservation can spark new life. Through tourism, history, and a bit of local passion, even the deadest towns can echo again. In the end, ghost towns remind us that progress is fragile and memory is powerful. Ghost towns aren't just about spooky vibes or historical trivia. They're reminders of how fast fortune can change, how progress isn't always permanent, and how the Australian landscape has a way of humbling anyone who thinks they can outsmart it. So next time you're driving through the outback and you see an old chimney poking out of the ground or a sign to a place you've never heard of, take the turn. You might just walk into a piece of Australia's forgotten soul. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoy Aussie history with a twist. Subscribe for more deep dives into the strange, the forgotten, and the iconic. And in the comments, tell us, which ghost town would you actually live in? Until next time, don't just follow the map, follow the silence.